ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः।
Dear friends, welcome back to the study of the Bhagavad Gita, and we have just started on the 4th chapter after completing the revision of the last 3 chapters. Now, during the last 3 chapters, Sri Krishna spoke about certain ideas, procedures, methodologies regarding building up our spiritual life. He spoke with unquestionable authority, invincible in arguments. Absolutely invincible arguments. And that authority with which he spoke, and Arjuna, and through Arjuna, all of us who are the students of the Gita, we are amazed not knowing who Sri Krishna is. Our advantage as of today is, because of the time gap, we are almost convinced that Sri Krishna is an avatara, Krishnastu Bhagavad Swayam. That is the conclusion of the devotees and students and academicians. He belongs to a different category altogether. Far, far different from us, but in appearance, he is a human. So for us, because we are steeped in this tradition, for us it is not a problem as to who Krishna is. Where from that he gets these invincible ideas and that unshakable authority and authenticity. To Arjuna, it was a great enigma, a great riddle, a great puzzle. My cousin brother, almost of the same age, maybe a little years difference, how come both of us are brought up in the same surroundings? How come he is speaking to me with such an authority and with such invincible argumentation or logic? Please kindly transport yourself in the position of Arjuna as it was then in the period of Kurukshetra. You'll be amazed, and it is a big question mark, how come, being my cousin, brought up under the same circumstances, how come he speaks with such conviction and such authenticity? A teacher, worth his name, the excellence of his capacity depends on reading and understanding the questions that arise in the listener's mind. And he understands that, and before giving the student a question to be raised, he answers to that question. This is an excellence of a teacher. And who could be a better teacher than God himself? Though Arjuna doesn't know it yet. So in Arjuna's mind, this riddle, this enigma, this puzzle, this amazement, this surprise call it by any name, is bothering him. The 4th chapter starts accepting that bother in Arjuna's mind. Sri Krishna himself, without being asked, he is answering the questions. What is that question? Who is he? Where from does he get these world-moving ideas? And where from he get that invincible authenticity? So we have studied the first 3 shlokas. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Sri Krishna says, look, it is I who spoke to Vivaswan about these concepts of Karma Yoga and Sannyasa Yoga. It's I who have spoken to them, and they, according to their progeny, generation after generation, they have passed down that wisdom to the modern age. Good enough. Now what happens? Humans are not realized souls in their birth. When they're born, they are not realized souls. They realize it through a particular disciplinary method. Prior to that, they are in a crossroad, full of the world and desire to know the reality behind this apparent transitory world. That is where we all stand. The pull of the world, the temptations of this world, and the desire to know the reality. When it is said to us regarding the divine, we can only understand that, we can only understand according to the capacity that we have generated in ourselves to understand. So the concept of Nirguna, Nirakara, Nirvikalpa Brahma, according to my makeup, according to my upbringing, according to my concept, I develop a vague idea of what that Nirguna, Nirakara, Nirvikalpa Brahma is. You, according to your sanskara, your background, you have an idea. All of us, according to our capacity, we develop an understanding. And that understanding is again under constant pressure of the pull of the worldly wisdom and the pull of ideology, and we tend to compromise. And compromising is nothing else but diluting the abstract, the absolute. So as time passes, dilution also increases. And ultimately, that dilution gets polluted. And we, like Mona Lisa's smile, the subtle ideas of scriptures means everything to everybody, anything to anybody. That is how, excuse my language, it is misconception develops, but I would say degeneration of authenticity of the ideas takes place. Degeneration of authenticity of those ideas takes place. which we can cover up by saying a misconception takes place. Why? Because that attitude of compromising between this and that. In the second shloka he says, Sa kalena iha nashta parantapa. During this lapse of time, that absolute, pristine, pure wisdom, which I passed on to Vivaswan and to Manu and to Ikshaku by generations, because of this passage of time and compromising by humans who listened, it has degenerated and it has lost its relevance, its value. Therefore, today, the third shloka, Te Adda. Today, I have decided to revive that lost, pristine purity of those eternal ideas. I have decided I will explain to you once again in its pristine purity, in its absolute character, absolute nature. Why so? Because during my interaction with you, our lifetime spent together, I am convinced that you are greatly devoted to me, and that devotion is based on mateship, based on friendship, not of fear, not of respect, which creates a distance. You have accepted me as your friend, philosopher, and guide. I am convinced about that. Therefore, I will explain to you in great detail the secret and the mystery of that eternal perennial wisdom. I will bhakto shi shakacheti rahasyam hi etad uttamam. That rahasya, that is, it is covered up with mystery. It is mystic. It is not readily understandable. That is a secret thing. But uttamam, that is the best knowledge or understanding that you can have in your life. What is that best knowledge or understanding? How to manifest the divinity which is already within us, the divinity which is our true original nature. We have studied these three shlokas. In anticipation of what is in Arjuna's mind and what is Arjuna prepared to ask. That is the excellence of a perfect teacher. While teaching, he understands what reaction takes place in the listener's mind, in the student's mind, and foreseeing that, he keeps on expressing, answering to those would-be questions. This type of statement is known as Jalpatmaka Kathanam. Bhada Vitanda Jalpa Katha. 4 types of interaction, verbal interaction that may take place. So this is the topmost class. What is the topmost class? The topmost class is in anticipation of what questions may arise in the student's mind. The teacher foresees that, and before he can question, he answers. So when the teacher stops, the student feels all my questions are answered. That is the excellence of the best teacher. And who can be the best teacher but God himself, incarnate in the form of Krishna? But Arjuna has not been told yet who his cousin brother Krishna is. We know, because we have taken advantage of elapse of time. We have taken advantage of enormous discussion that has taken place regarding concept of incarnation of God, Avatarabhada. The concept, the theory, the idea that God, Lord God of the universe, is born again and again and again, as and when he thinks in his own wisdom that his children needs to be helped. Helped which way? To find the way back to their Maker in heaven. He comes to show the way. So we have studied these 3 shlokas. Now we move on to the 4th shloka. What is that 4th shloka? The apprehended question that Arjuna has in his mind. The apprehension that Arjuna has in his mind. Arjuna, even listening to it, he speaks out, so that Sri Krishna is forced to explain and elaborate as simply as possible what he wants to say. Arjuna uvacha. Arjuna says, Aparam bhavato janma, param janma vivashvataha, kathametad vijaniyat, tvam ado proktavan iti. As simple as that. According to history, according to the passage of time, you are born along with me. You belong to this age group. Whereas Vivaswan, thousands of years ago, Manu, after him, but thousands of years ago, Ikshaku, after him. So when I look at our tradition and our history, I see you are born now with me in this age. Vivaswan, Ikshaku, Manu and others were born thousands of years ago. How do I understand? How do I convince myself? Vijaniyat. Jana is to know. Vijaniyat means how do I convince myself that you are the first who propounded these ideas? Tam ado proktavaniti, that you are the first person who spoke to Vivaswan, who spoke to Ikshaku, and so on and so forth. And that is how that wisdom has come down to this modern age. According to history, according to tradition, you are born now, and they were born before you. What is the logic? What is the rationale that you are claiming that Tvam Ado Proktavaniti, you spoke to all these people first, from you this idea has originated? This is how Arjuna asks a further question, though he has answered. Though Arjuna is comforted that he belongs to that class of a person, Bhakta, Shakhacha, therefore I will share this mystery with you. The secrets of yoga. What is yoga? To develop a line of communication between me and my God, between you and your God. That is yoga, communication, connecting this end with that end. A line of communication is opened up. That is yoga. And Sri Krishna says, I am the first person who spoke and made it clear, and during the process of time, it got slowly and slowly adulterated, polluted, and now, as I tell you, like Mona Lisa's smile, it means everything to everybody, anything to anybody. There's no authenticity left, to each according to their interpretation. Therefore, I will speak the true wisdom to you again, which is sublime, Uttamam. In reply to that, Arjuna is asking, Aparam bhavato janmaha. Your birth, according to history, according to sequence of time, your birth is later on. Param janma vivashata. Much, much, much before you, they were born. How do I convince myself? Katham etat vijaniyat. This statement of mine, etat, this statement of yours, katham, how can I, vijaniyat, convince myself? Tamado praktavaniti. How can I convince myself that you were the first person to teach the human society about all these methodologies, procedures, by means of which a normal, ordinary human being can find out a link, find out a path between himself at one end and the divine at other end. And he says it is Uttamam Rahasyam. It is a mystery covered up by mysteries, one after another. And at the core of that mystery is a real wisdom. How do I know that? So Krishna has to answer. Let us move on. And from this shloka onwards, I will request you to pay undivided attention to understand what is the concept, what is that principle, that philosophy known as incarnation of the divine himself as a human to help his children to find their way back to the Maker in heaven. It starts from here. That is why this chapter has been mentioned as Karma Brahmarpanam Yoga. How can this karma yoga, qualifies you to be a Jnana Yogi, and how by being a Jnana Yogi you merge with the Absolute. The fourth chapter is now taking you forward, telling you what to do, what not to do, and what is the basic principle of life to reach that spiritual goal. So, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, the 5th shloka. What does he say? Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava cha Arjuna. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava cha Arjuna. Tani aham veda sarvani nattam vedya parantapa. Let us stop here. Now, slowly and slowly, Sri Krishna is preparing the groundwork. Groundwork means from the level of our understanding. He will gradually put in ideas into our head, by means of which we have a vague or a proper understanding according to our own capacity, the concept of God incarnate. What is the necessity of this knowledge? Prayojanam. He will tell you later on. Let me just refer it to you now. Janma karma chame nityam ya enam beti tattatah tvakta deham punarajanma naeti mameti Arjuna. Why do I ask you to pay due attention to these few shlokas? Because he says, if you understand this theory, that it is a reality, not a woolly-headed fanciful idea, not a fairy tale, not an old maid's tale, not a witchcraft. It is a concrete, tangible, throbbing, vibrating, life-giving reality. What is that? God, Lord God of the universe, is born willfully as a human being to help the humans to go back to Him again, to find their own true original nature, to find their soul. Janma karma chame nitya divyam. My birth, my behavior pattern while I am in this human form, and my disappearance, each moment of it is divyam. Divyam drotanavan is self-effulgent. There is no darkness in it. Darkness about what? How does God behave as a human to set an example for you to imitate and to grow in that mold? Ramakrishna Mushai Druta Hoite Hoibe. This is in Swami Vivekananda's rule book of the Ramakrishna organization. Musha is the mold. You have to mold your personality and pour it into the mold that Sri Ramakrishna has left behind. And when it sets, you break away the mold and you have become one with Ramakrishna. Janma karma chame divyam. My birth and the way I live in my life and my departure. All this is Dotanaban, self-explanatory, self-effulgent. The darkness of understanding in your mind will totally disappear if you can understand the inner meaning of these few shlokas. From this to that Janma Karma Chame Divyam. Ya enam beti tattatah. He who understands in its essence, the essence behind the behavior pattern. The essence behind is he sees himself everywhere. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Madamatsarja is based on concept of separateness. That separateness has disappeared. I am everywhere. I am in this world and the world is in me. That is the description of the experience of a realized soul. Ya enam beti tattatah. Well, it is a backbreaking task. What is my incentive? What do I gain from this effort? Tvakta deham punarjanma nayati. When after knowing it in its essence, mind you, tattatah, you have to know it in its essence. No superficial nodding acquaintance will do. You have to be and become one with it. You have to mold yourself into that mold, or you have to cast yourself into that mold and be one with that mold. He will not be born again. So where do I go? I will not be born. Shall I vanish? Shall I disappear into nothingness? That nothingness is a terrible void. Oh, I'll be absolutely annihilated. There's nothing remains of me. Immediately Sri Krishna corrects and says, Punarjanma nayati. He will no more be born as a human. Mameti sa Arjuna. Hey Arjuna, sa he. He merges into me. He becomes eternal with me, eternal with the divine. This is the end shloka of the Avataravad. And we are in the first shloka of the Avataravad. So Arjuna has asked, Sri Krishna says in reply to Arjuna's question, that you were born today and they were born thousands of years ago, and you say you have advised them? Well, you say so, but you don't convince me. Katham etad vijaniyat. How do I convince myself that you in my presence was present there at that time and you spoke to them? Quite logical, quite rational, quite commonsensical. Listen to what Sri Krishna now says. The starting point of the concept of Avataravad. The concept of incarnation of the divine in a human form. And history proves ages after ages and after ages, it is not a one-off situation. It has been repeated in this world through tradition and through the areas of history. History has not reached the traditions, but tradition is a part of history, or history is depending on traditions. Whatever we may say, they are supplementary and complementary to each other. History has proved. What are they? Dash avatara of our Indian concept. Apart from that, Abraham, Moses, Buddha, Christ, Shankara, Ramanuja, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and ultimately Sri Ramakrishna. And in the modern age, with the extension of technology and science, we are extremely scientifically oriented. Whatever we don't see with our eyes or interact with our five sense organs is not true. I must hear it to be true. I must see it to be true. If my eyes are not good enough, let us get an electronic microscope, multiplying it by 10,000 times, then only I see and I believe. What do I see here? Somebody claiming. That's all that it is. Now listen, in Sri Ramakrishna's life he says, I have become, I have arrived. I am. That amness cannot be expressed in words. It is experienceable, not describable. But amness is experienceable. I am. He doesn't say that, but in our gospel we find he says, I have become. Become what? Parameshwara. Tasya sarvagatya bijam. That is how Parameshwara has been explained. He is a knower and doer and creator of everything. There is nothing beyond him. So, I have become Lord God of the universe. Sagan, Sakar, Sagun, Savikalpa, Ishvara. Sakara, Akara Sahita, Saguna, Guna Sahita, Vikalpa Sahita, Saguna Brahma. Ishvara Parameshwara. I have become. And after a while, in Samadhi Avastha, he says, I have arrived. Ami hoyechi, I have become. Ami eshechi, I have arrived. Arrived as who? Sri Ramakrishna, Avatara Swayam. He says it at this time. Christ says, I am the way, I am the goal. Study all of their statements. Somewhere or other, hidden in the whole mass of literature, you will find they have asserted their divinity and they are incarnations of the divine. So here Sri Krishna says, Bahuni me vyatitani, janmani tava cha Arjuna. Hey Arjuna, Bahuni janmani, many birth cycles. I was born, I was dead. You were born, you have died. Both of us have gone through the same cycle multiple times. Bahuni means multiple times. You and me both have been born and disappeared in time in this world. What is the difference between you and me, Arjuna? Sri Krishna is now asserting his divinity. Asserting his divinity. What is that? Tani aham samvedya. Tani aham veda sarvani. Of all those births, all the experience that I have gathered, I, aham, tani, sarvani, veda. I know all of them in totality. I remember them. What I did as Rama, what I did as Krishna, what I did as Abraham or Moses, as Buddha, as Christ, Shankara, Ramanuja, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even as Sri Ramakrishna. I know and remember every bit of it. Vedya. I know with total awareness and consciousness what I did, why I did so, what for I was born, what was the mission of my life. Everything. Natvam vetha parantapa. However high and mighty you may be, parantapa means high and mighty, of immeasurable strength and power. A human being that can achieve and attain, Arjuna has attained that. I know everything and I remember everything. Whereas, by contrast, you have no idea what happened to you in your previous births. Na vetya parantapa. You do not know or remember anything. This is the distinction between a human and an incarnation. That is why in a very short 2 words, the scriptures have identified the state of an avatara and a manava. What is an avatara? Atandra Chaitanya. Tandra is drowsiness, not even sleep. Sleep is deeper. Even when you are drowsy, you still remember. Atandra Chaitanya. His Chaitanya never goes to sleep, is never drowsy, it is ever alert. Whereas ours is Tamasa Brita Chaitanya. Our Chaitanya, our awareness of our true original nature is covered with darkness. So Avatar Purusha is known as Atandra Chaitanya. His Chaitanya, his awareness never goes to sleep. What to speak of sleeping is never ever drowsy. It's always alert. The sun is always shining bright. It is never covered with cloud. There's no cloud there. But for us, the cloud is so dark that we cannot discriminate whether it is day or it is night. This is what happens to us. So let us read the shloka again. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Bahuni me vyatitani. Many janmani tavacha Arjuna. Hey Arjuna, let us read the whole line. It is easy. Hey Arjuna, both of us have gone through many cycles of birth and so-called death. So-called birth for me, so-called death for me, and birth and death for you. So let us say, we both of us have gone through many cycles of birth and death, hey Arjuna. But there's a distinction between you and me. Krishna is now asserting, or he has started to ascertain his God divinity, his godhood. He says, Tani aham veda sarvani. I remember everything of each and every time that I am born. why I am born, how I am born, to which family I am born, and having born, what do I do, what is the mission of my life, and when I complete my mission, how I disappear from the sea. I remember every bit of it. Natvam vetha parantapa. However, how and mighty you may be, Arjuna, natvam vetha parantapa. You do not know, remember anything of it. Whereas I know. This is the difference between a mortal human and the divine incarnate as a human. Though we appear to be human, though we are identified by four concepts, name, form, guna, and artha, kriya, karitva, but the innate essential difference is he knows everything of his past and I know nothing of my past. Not even nothing of my past. Even in this life, I don't know everything of my past. I've forgotten. This is how he first instilled in us the concept of distinction between incarnation of the divine, though he appears to be human, and an ordinary mortal human being. Tanyaham Veda Sarvat. Now, the next shloka is a starting point of the philosophical aspect of an avatar. Ajopi san abhyatma bhutanam isharopi san prakritim samash adhishtaya sambhavami atma mayaya. He says how he creates himself. Let us keep it for the next discourse. This is the introduction of the concept of avatarvad. Thank you, dears. Thank you ever so much for your attention and your concentrated attention. Thank you. We meet again next time.
Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.